Hey everyone, Savannah Tree Foundation Field Manager Jake Henry here, and today we've got another really cool tree species that you don't see a lot of here in Savannah. So today we're looking at the American beech, or Fagus grandifolia. This is a native tree species here to the eastern United States. It spans pretty much all the way from Canada down to Georgia, down to the Gulf Coast. We're really on the southern end of it though, you know, the coastal Georgia, Florida, you don't see it as much. It really doesn't like the extreme heat down here, so they do tend to struggle, particularly here in Savannah, but a really interesting tree species you can find here and there. And this particular specimen is here in Forsyth Park. You can see all around, there's the fountain over there. Again, this northern end of Forsyth Park is designated as an arboretum, so there are some really incredible tree species here that you might not find in a lot of other places around Savannah. So, back to our American beech. A really fascinating tree species. They can get absolutely massive, well over 100 feet tall. Many times you'll see a large kind of multi-stem trunk. They can get really, really wide. And this one's a little bit tall, so I can't really zoom in on the leaves, but see if we can get close. You can see some of those serrated leaves. It's a pretty good indicator. And this one's just starting to produce some seed as well. So American beech is a thin-barked tree species, so when damage occurs to the bark, like folks carving their initials into it, can actually cause some pretty significant damage and will actually end up being a entry point for decay and disease. So particularly with tree species like this, it's really important not to do these sorts of things because it can really cause some long-lasting damage. You know, you can see these ones are pretty new, but even here, these ones are probably years and years old, and it's still not fully healed over. So it could take a really long time for even a mature tree like this to bounce back after damage like that. Now, one of the cool things about American beech, and I wish it did a little bit better here because I'd like to use it more, is it's actually a really shade tolerant species. So we've talked about this before, particularly with maples. Red maple is a great example of a shade tolerant species. That means they don't mind hanging out underneath the canopy of other trees. As we think about replanting our urban forest, it's really important to be able to diversify and try to plant things early before we have to wait for the other trees to die off. So red maple is a great example of something we can plant underneath that dense canopy of live oaks. American beech would be another great example as well, except again, it's a little hot. We're just south of its range, so it doesn't do really, really well here. And one of the cool similarities between American beech and red maple is they're both relatively thin-barked species. And you'll find that with later successional species. So succession essentially means as the forest develops over time, you find these species that don't have to deal with the really harsh pressures of a bare open site. So they can have the thin bark and still succeed and do really well. So this is something you'll actually find with shade tolerant later successional species, is a little bit thinner bark. So just kind of a fun fact there. But really a magnificent tree. You know, there's some diseases that are affecting it pretty significantly in the Northeast. You don't see it as much down here, again, just because they're not as common. But definitely a really wonderful native tree species here on the eastern coast of the United States. Thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Take care.